Okay, and then hit start broadcast. And then we're ready? Mm-hmm. Okay.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everyone. So according to my clock, it is 1 p.m. Central Time. So to be respectful of everybody's schedule, we're going to go ahead and get started on time. So good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are. And welcome to the PACE webinar number 1, Engaging Patients in Care, Research, Advocacy, and anything else that suits your fancy. My name is Jessica Sand, and I'm a member of the PACE project team. I will be giving a brief introduction and going over some background information, and then I will be handing it over to our presenters today, Mariette Felsian and Ned Norman. Merritt and Ned are both members of the Community Advisory Council for the High Plains Research Network, based in Colorado. And today they will be presenting on their experiences and adventures as veteran community health advocates. Then Dr. Jack Westfall will be concluding the webinar with a brief update on the PACE project. Dr. Westfall is founder and director of the High Plains Research Network and has been a tireless leader in patient and community engagement in primary care. So my next slide is a few housekeeping items. So while I'm going over those, I'd like to take a quick poll of the audience. So hopefully you should see a pop-up box on your screen. If you could choose which answer you best identify with today while attending this webinar. Are you a patient or community member, a practicing physician or clinician, a researcher, or a student? So while you take a moment to answer that, I will go on to the next slide. You can just talk about who's here. Okay, so it looks like the results of the poll, we have 13% as patients or community members, 15% as practicing physician or clinicians, 67% as researchers, and 5% as students. So thank you all for participating in that. So just a few items before we get started. First, we will be recording this webinar and posting it on the PACE website, which is hosted under the NAPCRG site shown here on this slide. Second, we always welcome your questions and comments via the chat function found on the right side of your screen. Feel free to send these in at any time, and I will pose the questions to our presenters at the end of their presentation today. I anticipate having about 10 to 15 minutes at the end for Q&A. And if we are unable to address your question or comments during the webinar, you can always email your questions to us at pace@napcrg.org. So before I hand things over to Merritt and Ned, I want to go over a little bit of background information about what exactly is PACE. So PACE stands for Patient and Clinician Engagement, and the PACE project is funded by a PCORI Eugene Washington Engagement Award, which was awarded to NAPCRG in 2014. NAPCRG stands for North American Primary Care Research Group, and it's an organization that fosters primary care research in the U.S. and Canada and across the world. The goal of PACE is to bring together patients and community clinicians to play a lead role in advocating for and conducting primary care research. So over the next 2 years, PACE will be hosting day-long pre-conferences, webinars such as this one, and local symposia to build a team of patients and clinicians engaged in primary care research and advocacy. So for more information about PACE or how to get involved in PACE, again, you can visit our webpage on the NAPCRG site. And now if you give us just a moment, we are going to switch presenters and I will hand things over to Merritt.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
So thank you, Jessica, and welcome. Thank you. Okay. Am I good to go?
Yep.
Thank you, Jessica. Welcome, everyone. I have to give just a little bit of an explanation. I had a Christmas virus, and I'm still getting over that, and so if I have to take a quick cough break, I will do that quickly and as quietly as I can. It's great to be here today. I am a longtime rural community member in Colorado. I am a community college teacher, and you might be asking yourself, why is this webinar being led by these community members in rural Colorado? Well, it's a good question, but I am delighted to be your presenter today, and I just thought that we would share our story about being engaged patient and community members in primary care research for over 10 years now, and by extension, how this has allowed us to become advocates for primary care research and primary care work and research and community engagement. So first I'm going to give you just a little bit of context. So the High Plains Research Network is situated in eastern portion of Colorado. This is a geographically based network, and it includes all the practices, hospitals, and behavioral health offices and nursing homes in these 16 counties. The Community Advisory Council is a group of community members who are experts in our community, but we do not represent any one disease or condition or research focus. While our goal is to inform and guide the research projects with the patient experience, our involvement has incrementally expanded over the years. We use a philosophy in the High Plains Research Network, especially with the Community Advisory Group, the Advisory Council, that everyone comes to the table with expertise. I am an expert in my community, but I also bring some personal expertise, but I do not bring research expertise. That's what the researchers bring. They bring research expertise, they bring grant expertise, they bring their own personal expertise. But we are effective because collectively, as a group, this Community Advisory Council, the CAC, and the research team, we have a really, really rich breadth. And so there's just some ideas here that share ways that we can all speak when we're at the table that maybe isn't an expertise of everybody, but there's certainly someone at the table who does have that expertise. Additionally, it's important to understand that not everybody is expected to do something that is out of their expertise range. If I'm uncomfortable doing something, then I don't have to pursue that. And if I don't have expertise in something, you don't want me to be participating in that. Trust me, you don't want me to be writing grants. That would be unproductive. But we have found that by combining all of our expertise, our experiences, our voices, our ideas, in long meetings and ongoing conversations, that we can focus around our work and our projects. We're able to drill down and create success, create meaningful projects, and we all become a little bit more expertise in the area that we are working in. So I'm going to give you some examples of what advocacy looks like for us, and I'm going to start locally and kind of expand the circles out incrementally. So within the High Plains Research Network, we advocate to the research team that the projects are meaningful and relevant. We join in the research process as partners and team members. We translate complex and technical medical language into messages that can inform and activate our communities and inform and help us design and implement projects that work within our communities. We use a methodology, we often use, almost regularly use a methodology called boot camp translation. We are able to interact with the research team and advocate for our ideas to help the research team look at the project with a broader perspective and increase the view from their lens. Additionally, we're able to reach into our own communities, and we're able to leverage our relationships within, our neighbors and friends and the community that we know in order to get many, many people involved. And we're able to help connect to the right people who can then help us motivate and activate even further. For example, here's an image of a community member who is advocating neighbor to neighbor, so to speak, around the idea of being tested for colon cancer, and we have found this to be incredibly powerful. We are able to make a call to action locally interesting and noticeable and relevant. So a farm auction flyer in my community carries a lot of weight. This attracts a lot of attention. And so by implementing this, we attract and connect with the people that we are targeting, our audience for the project that we're involved in. Okay, expanding on out. We're able to make sure that the topics that are interesting to us stand out to the research team and stay in focus, so that when we're looking for grants and opportunities for projects, that they are always there. And so we do this within our vast community, but we are also then able to share and advocate and teach our ideas and our processes to our neighbors in the urban area, so that then they can be advocates for the health concerns that interest them. So as you can see here, the urban Latino community in Denver and the urban African American community in Denver have learned some of our methods, and they've taken it to their own groups, and they have started to work on projects that are important to them. So kind of expanding the advocacy out, you know how advocacy is, it kind of magically moves into larger and larger circles. At the university, at the University of Colorado, our research institution, this engagement or advocacy has meant a lot of different things. Here's just a couple of ideas. For one thing, we've been able to simplify the IRB process for community-based participatory research. But the advocacy has also meant that we've been able to create training programs and opportunities for researchers in order to learn how to do community engagement, meet community partners, and start to create a relationship. And vice versa, community partners have been able to reach out and meet researchers at the university. It's also meant figuring out payment processes so that there's a simpler method for moving grant money between researchers and their community partners. So those are just some examples there. And then we expand the circle out even more and beyond the university. We've advocated it with national funders. PCORI, for example. We've been able to kind of address policies and provide project ideas so that community engagement is, forefront and always being developed and expanded. We've worked closely with NAPCRAG, NIH, ARC, and PCORI on a variety of different things. At NAPCRAG, patients and community members were invited to help with their latest strategic plan so that they were doing an even better job, because they already do a good job, but an even better job in engaging patients and clinicians. And my final example that I'm going to give you this afternoon is the opportunity to co-author papers and send them in for publication and to have them published. That's a long author list up there, and that's because all but the last two are part of the community advisory group. Those are the community members, and oftentimes we insist that everybody gets an author listing. We've presented at national conferences, panels, poster presentations, and even being allowed to be part of a webinar. So these are just some examples of what engagement and advocacy can look like when patients and community members partner in the process. So at this point, I'm going to turn this over to Ned Norman, who's sitting right here with me. He's going to share just a few messages about how to foster quality and sustainable engagement for your own advocacy efforts. So Ned, here you go.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Ned Norman, and like Merritt, I'm a member of the High Plains Research Network's Community Advisory Council. And as such, and also like Merritt, I'm not a researcher or a medical professional. I'm a cattle rancher who's glad to be inside warm and dry, taking a break from cabbing out my cows right now. So Merritt just gave you a great description of some of the many ways that we've been engaged in research and advocacy. And I wanted to share a little bit about the process and the relationships that have allowed community members to work our way into this world. And I'll also give some lessons that we've learned. A few of them were born out of some early frustrations as we've gone through this journey together. So the first point that I think is really important is we are not just a focus group or a sounding board for the research team. The research team and the community have made, at this point, a 10-year investment in each other. And over this time and throughout this journey, we have become partners, friends, collaborators. And this long-standing relationship it allows us to sort of leverage research and medical knowledge along with community expertise. And with those two things, brought together, we can produce locally relevant research questions and interventions for our community. So we as community members, we naturally become advocates for the work that we do. And it's easy to be advocates for the work that you do because we take full ownership of this work because we've been involved in it from the beginning. It's not just something that we've been shown and checked off or agreed with. We've truly been part of it from its very start. So being an important voice of advocacy for our work is a simple process for us. So if you're looking at doing community engaged work in advocacy, I think it's important to keep in mind that this isn't just a method or a window dressing process where you can attach community to what you're doing. It's really a process. It's a bit of a different way of working possibly than what you're used to. And as such, one of the main lessons that we've learned is you have to trust the process because it's not a quick fix. And earlier I did call it a journey because this relationship, building these kind of relationships, it takes time. Educating community members about the intricacies of research takes time. At least it certainly did for me. And I think the same with teaching researchers about patients in their community. And this entire process takes commitment and openness and the ability to talk about it from the beginning. And so, again, just trust this process. A second important point is to find your voice. Community members, especially ones who are not research health-based or academically professional-based, they might need some coaxing to speak up. They might have a hard time realizing that what they have to say is crucial to pushing the process forward. And the researchers can be very helpful in talking to them, trusting them, coaxing the expertise out of them. And the other place that I think the community voice is so important is the responsibility that we have to see that the information is fed back into our community. So often the research process is extractive and information just leaves the community. But having the community engaged at this level really serves as a conduit for best practices in research to move back into the community that it came from. A third lesson learned, and this was a big one, is it takes patience, and that's patience with a C. Research takes time. And community members who are recently educated about a health issue and they're activated and they want to do things, and I can tell you that they generally have no use for protocol fidelity. They get antsy. They want to go home from the meeting, and they want to start calling their doctors and calling their friends and going to Rotary and make things happen. And it's important to to educate the community that research is a long timeline. Grant fund cycles take a while. Developing a research question, then funding, then doing surveys, all of this process takes time, and you have to explain this early on so that you don't lose the community involvement at the beginning. Because the community, as the researchers will probably tell you, will push you probably a little faster than you want it to go. And of course, we want everybody to get involved and to stay involved. That's the key to all this. And it's crucial to let everybody find their own personal and authentic way to be involved. Not everybody in our group wants to present at a conference. Not everybody in our group wants to be an author on a paper. Everybody has a different way of contributing, and it makes for more robust work when you allow the people on the group to work through these processes and to pick and choose what they want to do and foster that involvement and let it build on it. We've had people on our group who the main thing they wanted to do was write letters in the newspaper. We have other people who are happy to travel and are happy to present. So it's really crucial for the researchers to also give people constant chances to be involved in this process. And that can be anything from speaking at Rotary to speaking nationally at bigger venues. So finally, I guess all we can say is we got involved, and we're actively engaged in primary care research and advocacy in our community. And this whole process came about essentially because we were asked by researchers who wanted to try to inform and make their research more robust. And we wanted to spread this patient and community voice that we've enjoyed and that we have found to be a powerful way to increase the health in our own community to other people, and to see if we can get more people involved in this kind of work. And as we've said earlier, advocacy can take on many disguises, from changing medical language to the national level talking to people to the lunch that I have at the sale barn, and I can talk about medical research there. It can be granular, it can be national. So as Marcy Nielsen from PCPCC said at our last pre-conference, anyone can be an advocate, but they just have to be true to themselves and tell a story. So now I'm going to hand this over to Jack Westfall, who is the director of High Plains Research Network, if I can figure out how to do this.
Jessica, can you do that?
So can you hear me?
There we are.
I'm hoping everybody can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
So this is Jack. Is there a next slide? There we go. So I'll just finish up with first thanking Ned and Merritt for taking time out of your regular lives to share with us sort of the story of your work around advocacy for primary care research, and specifically NAPCRG and the Patient-Centered Outcomes Research Institute. Thank you very much for sharing with us. It's delightful to work with you. I hope everybody on the call, I think there's 50 or 60 people on the call, get the opportunity to work with patients and community members like Ned and Merritt, and the rest of our team, who get to really participate in some of the fun work of linking primary care, public health, community organizations using language and ideas that matter to patients. And whether you call them patients or community members, I don't think is really that important. So what we wanted to do with this PACE, the patients and clinician engagement, was to engage regular people, practicing docs, patients, and community members in primary care research. We wanted to help tell the story about why primary care research is important, in addition to why basic science research and disease-specific research is important. We also want people to understand the needs of primary care research. And so the Patient-Centered Outcomes Research Institute provided us with this funding We've done 2 conferences, and what we thought we wanted was to get patients and their providers to come to NAPCRG and teach the patients and providers about research, get them excited about engagement so that they could do important advocacy work with us to increase support and funding for primary care research. That was sort of our goal. We got people together. We've done it twice now, and what we got was a really activated group of dyads, patients and providers who were really excited about what they were seeing at NAPCRG and the breadth of primary care research and the advocacy work. And they said, yeah, we'll help tell that story. Oh, and by the way, we also want to be part of NAPCRG, part of NAPCRG leadership. We want to impact PCORI and NIH, and we want to help get primary care and our stories into your stories. We want to get their attention. We'd like to get their money, but really we want to get their attention so that they do things that matter to us, and we want to help impact that. And so we changed up the PACE conference a little bit to be a little bit more in line with how do we, instead of just going to Washington, D.C. and doing Hill visits and talking to legislators, how do we also impact policy at the organizational level, so at the Patient-Centered Outcomes Research Institute or at NAPCRG or at local foundations or within state agencies or within the local health community. And so the dyads have now disseminated, and we're going to be continuing this in additional pre-conferences, but those dyads have now gone back to their communities and are doing advocacy work on a whole host of things, whether it be healthcare in their community or writing pipeline to proposal grants to PCORI so that they can get a group, their own group together in their own town around their own topic of interest. Some of them are becoming merit reviewers, so they're going to review PCORI grants. They're going to learn how to review grants so that suddenly there's a group of people reviewing grants who are also regular patients and primary care providers helping lead that PCORI charge. We have a series of webinars like the one you're on, and then we're going to have a series of local symposia that we'll do throughout the country so that we can bring people together for a short period of time, 4 hours or so, to talk about local policy, advocacy, engagement. And really the key for this is to engage patients and providers together. That's what came of doing this for 2 years now, is that the magic place is in doing advocacy work together with the patient and the provider. There's something there that happens that adds and is synergistic to the work that doing work with patients is cool, doing work with providers is cool. When you put them together, that's sort of the magic place that this group discovered, and that's what we're going to continue to do. Is there another slide? So that brings us to the end, and this is one of Ned Merritt's bulls. His name is Deuce, and I have his child in his offspring in my freezer. So I'd like to thank people for joining us. We will take questions. You can chat, you can type them in, and then somebody at the core office will ask them, and we will move forward. If you have questions or if you want to participate, the website is here, pace@napcrg.org, and we look forward to hearing from you and having you participate in future webinars and possibly in our pre-conferences. Please ask your questions.
So Jack, I do have a question probably best for you. So we have a participant who definitely sees the patient engagement movement in primary care, but she's a little frustrated with how slow it seems to be moving into specialty areas. So the question is, do you see this movement going into specialty areas, and how can she facilitate that movement into specialty areas?
So I think there's a growing movement across the spectrum, across the board, for getting more patients engaged. I think primary care providers are more used to it. It's the way we practice. We try to engage our patients in sort of our practice, and so it's not as big a step. I think many specialists are doing this quite well, and I think PCORI has tapped a lot of those folks for engagement, but I don't think it's quite the norm or is quite as far advanced as in primary care, and particularly the linkage between primary care and public health. I think that place is where a lot of engagements happen. But I think we're seeing a growing amount of engagement in all the areas. So keep pushing and keep reminding and keep trying to get the specialists you may see or you may be involved with to engage the patients in other aspects of care as well.
So the next question is about the local symposia, and they're wondering how to get involved and what those are going to look like.
So we're planning the first one. It will actually be here in Colorado. We thought we could do one locally here in Colorado to sort of practice, and if we, the mistakes we make will be less painful for folks because there'll be mistakes that I make and Merritt and Ned make. So we'll be having one here. We're looking at, they will be 2 to 3, 4 hours, and they will include work around what is advocacy work, what is primary care research, how do you get involved as dyads or patients and providers in PCORI research or merit reviews, how might you go about writing a pipeline to proposal grant. We will probably have some brainstorming about clinical topics for potential pilot pipeline to proposal grants through PCORI. So those, if you want to get involved, shoot an email to us at pace@mappcraig.org, and we'll be back in touch with you. We will probably be doing 2 to 3 this year, and then 2 to 3 in 2016.
So this might be a good question for Merritt and Ned. And somebody is wondering how to get started inviting those first patients to join the table with clinicians and researchers. So maybe how were you approached to join in this patient engagement movement?
Thanks, Jessica. This is Merritt. And, I think it seems like a daunting process, but my answer is going to be that it's actually a fairly simple process. When we think about, like, who do I want to have on this group, immediately people come to mind. And if not very many people come to mind for me, then if I talk to a coworker or a colleague and ask them, well, who do you know? And so really it's a process about tapping into the people you know and starting to simply ask the question. We have a crazy idea. We think we'd like to engage patients or community members in our interest areas around research or around improving our primary care practice, and we're interested if you would be willing to help us. Or if you aren't willing to help us, do you know somebody who'd be willing to help us? And if you'll simply ask the question, you'd be surprised who will either perk up and say, wow, that's weird, but sure. Or they may say, wow, not for me, but you know what? I know somebody who's perfect for something like that. So the hardest part is figuring out those first few people and starting to ask the question.
And Dr. Westphal, from the physician point of view, what were some of the difficulties getting started with a community advisory council, and what would you recommend for someone having issues with engaging their community advisory council?
This requires doing some cold calls. So I had met, I work with Merritt and Ned. I had met Merritt at summer camp when we were in college, and I knew she had a ranch out in eastern Colorado. So when we started this, she was one of the people I called. I asked one of my patients and her husband to participate, and finding the just right patient, the just right patient is a patient who can think beyond their own personal health, but doesn't have an axe to grind or a singular agenda that they're out for. And so when you find that kind of person who is sort of curious and sort of can think beyond their own disease or their own condition and is excited to do some work for the community, that's the just right patient. I think, allowing patients to lead some of this and being patient with patients, I think, is really crucial. Patients have different ideas about how healthcare should be done, and if the physician's ego is too big and they have to have it, if I have to have it my way, it's not going to always work. Sometimes I get my way, but sometimes I don't. And as long as it's not, malpractice or bad medicine or bad science, then it may not matter. And so I think it's stepping aside and letting the patients and having the patients be partners, not just advisors, has been one of the successes for our group.
Jack, I'm going to jump in and just add that sometimes getting started is a bit challenging, especially from the patient or community member's point of view, because the task isn't always really clear-cut. And so sometimes if there's a particular project that is sitting right in front of you, we need to tackle this one thing, and it is a short turnaround project, but it can engage everybody and get everybody's voices at the table and start to work together as a group. That's a really, really good way to create energy and momentum and build relationship. And then relationship is key.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question. So thinking from the community level, so the physician or a patient or a community member, how would we connect with a research organization interested in doing primary care research?
So Jack, I'm going to ask you to fill in here, but PCORI is doing a lot of work around matchmaking and helping those particular groups find a researcher. And I think that there are, and Jack, I'm going to let you take over, but in Colorado we've tried to create ways to help researchers sort of actually go into a community, almost embed within a community and start to figure out who those players are and what the needs are for a community. But we've done that the other community and interested patients and community-based organizations into the research world and almost had a kind of speed dating methodology going on. So Jack, I'm going to let you add.
Yeah, so I hate to punt this question because it's a really important one, but I think this is actually a big enough question that it deserves a longer, maybe its own webinar, because I think there's a lot of ways to go about it, whether it's from a disease-specific standpoint or a university-specific standpoint or through PCORI. There's multiple ways to identify and find partners who have a passion and an interest and a support and the resource to collaborate on particular projects. So I hate to give it short shrift, and so I think we should plan to have this be a future webinar that's specifically about how do you find people who want to work together. And PCORI, I know, is developing several sort of flow sheets about what does it look like to develop a relationship between a researcher and a community group or a community member who are interested in a topic. So I hate to punt it, but I think it deserves a longer answer than I can give in a minute or two.
All right, so I think that's all the time we have. I do have some questions about the slides given today being made available for your use. And not only will I post the recording of the webinar, but I'll go ahead and post the PowerPoint on our website as well. So yes, I will make that available for all of you. So I want to thank Merritt, Ned, and Dr. Westfall, and thank you to all of you who participated in the first PACE webinar. We will be announcing specifics about the second webinar soon, so be watching your emails and checking our website for those details. Also, you should be receiving a survey by email to let us know your thoughts about the webinar today, so please take a moment to complete that and return it to us. And thank you so much for joining us, and have a great day.
I've seen that.